All right, today we're jumping into a story that honestly has it all. You've got a mysterious company, a completely massive tech project, and a small Texas town that's caught right in the middle. It's really a classic story of huge promises running up against some very real local skepticism. So it all kicks off with this one number, 3,000 megawatts. That's the power this new data center campus is supposed to use. Just to give you a sense of scale, that's enough juice to power over 2 million homes. It would make this the single biggest data center in the entire United States, by a long shot. And where is this monster project supposed to go? In Sulphur Springs, Texas, a little rural town with, get this, a population of just 16,000 people. A huge project for a tiny town. And that is the million-dollar question here. Is this a legitimate vision of the future, or is there something else going on entirely? Let's dig into the details and see what we can find out. Okay, so let's get into what's actually being proposed. The official name is the Matrix Data Center Campus, and boy, is it being pitched as a total game changer for this part of Texas. I mean, the scale here is just wild. We're talking about 30 massive buildings on over 1,600 acres of land. Plus, they're throwing around some absolutely huge numbers, an $18 billion investment, and a promise of 7,000 construction jobs. And here's the real hook, right? The big promise. The company claims this project will bring in over $100 million a year in taxes. Now get this, the city's entire budget for 2025 is only $35 million. We're talking triple the city's budget. The city manager was quoted saying it's enough money to replace every street in town. You can see why that's a tough offer to turn down. So you have to be asking, who's the company making these gigantic promises? Well, this is where the story starts to get interesting. The developer is a firm called MSB Global Services. But as soon as you start digging, you find some weird stuff. A big gap between their claims and reality. For example, they say they were founded way back in 2009. But their website? It just popped up in 2024. They call themselves market leaders, but you can't find a single completed project anywhere. And then there's this. State records show the LLC literally changed its name just this past June, which kind of suggests it was just recently repurposed for this. And the leadership team? Well, that doesn't exactly clear things up. You've got a CEO whose background is in residential solar sales and fund management. The VP has experience with wind and solar farms. Now, that's all fine, but here's the kicker. There's no one on the team with any real verifiable track record of building or running a massive data center like this. None. So you can imagine it didn't take long for people to start asking questions. Locals, data center experts online, they all started digging, and what they found was a whole flood of red flags. Seriously, it started raising major doubts about whether this thing was even possible. Red flag number 1. The land itself. Where are they planning to build this? On a former lignite coal strip mine. The land was actually a gift to the city, but with the major catch. The expensive and lengthy process of reclaiming the land was nowhere near finished. And that is a huge problem. As one local pointed out on Reddit, the original mining company has apparently stated that the ground won't be stable enough to build on for at least another 30 years. Think about it. You're putting billions of dollars of sensitive equipment on ground that could literally shift and settle for decades. That's a massive, massive risk. Okay, but the disconnect gets even wider when you hear their technical promises. They claim they can 3D print a massive data center building in 30 days. You know, the big tech giants with all their resources, it takes them months, sometimes years. And then they promise zero water usage for cooling, which is like the holy grail for this industry and totally unproven at this scale. It's no wonder experts are basically calling all of this marketing fantasy. So the pros started chiming in with the really tough questions. Like, how is the Texas power grid, which we all know can be fragile, going to handle this thing? And hey, if that zero water cooling doesn't pan out, where are millions of gallons of water going to come from? Who's footing the 30 to 50 times billion-dollar bill? And maybe the biggest question of all, are there any actual customers? Have any big tech companies signed on? Right now, crickets. No public answers to any of it. With all these red flags piling up, experts started using a very specific word for this project, vaporware. You know, it's a term for a product that gets a ton of hype, tons of press, but it never actually materializes. It's just vapor. So you have to wonder, is that what's going on here?
So while all these technical questions are swirling around, things are also starting to get tense back in Sulphur Springs. A real divide is opening up between the city officials and the people who actually live there. And a lot of that mistrust seems to come from how this whole deal went down. It was all negotiated behind closed doors. Most residents had no idea what was happening until after the agreements were already signed. Right from the get-go, people felt left out of a decision that would change their town forever. Now, to be fair, from the city's point of view, the logic is pretty simple. The city manager, Mark Maxwell, is the project's #1 cheerleader. He's focused on that incredible economic promise, the money that could totally transform the town. But on the other side, you have residents like Sharon Felt, who are saying, hey, I wish we could have voted on this. For them, a decision this massive, something that could completely change the face of their community, shouldn't have been made behind closed doors. And this conflict just kept escalating. After the deal became public, city council meetings were suddenly standing room only, filled with people against it. Then MSB cancels public tours of the site, saying there was too much interest, which, a lot of people took to mean they were ducking tough questions. And the final straw for many, the city flat out denied requests from residents to even formally discuss the project at a council meeting. That just made the divide even wider. So, let's step back. You've got these unbelievable promises, a company with a lot of question marks, a ton of technical red flags, and a community that's completely divided. So what's really at stake here for Sulphur Springs? It really feels like there are two possible futures here, and they could not be more different. On one hand, you have the dream, a massive economic boom, thousands of jobs, a town reborn as a tech hub. But on the other hand, you have the risk that this whole thing is vaporware, a project that just disappears, leaving the city with wasted costs, a potential mess on that old mine site, and a community that's been torn apart.
And after digging through everything that's publicly available, one data center expert on Reddit put it pretty bluntly. He said, look, with this team, this unstable land, and these impossible promises, this has all the hallmarks of a project that will never be built as proposed. Basically, the version sold to the public just isn't going to happen.
And that really leaves us with one last big question. Because this story isn't just about Sulphur Springs, Texas. The AI boom is pushing these massive data centers into small towns all across America's heartland. So is this the future of rural development? Or is this a huge cautionary tale in the making? A warning about what happens when huge promises meet a lack of scrutiny? Honestly, the final chapter on this one has yet to be written.